With rare exceptions, most television series want you to like their lead characters. They want you to identify with the lead, or invest in their journey, or find them charming or endearing. But it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes lead characters start out well enough, and over time their flaws become harder to ignore, their behaviors increasingly maddening. Over the past few decades, television has seen an explosion in deeply unlikable main characters, so join the great pop culture debate as we consider the worst lead character in a TV series. Confession, I was the model for the hideous dancing baby that tormented Ally McBeal. Feel old yet? I'm your host, Eric Resniak. Please welcome my panelists for this episode. We think our first panelist may be the voice of her generation. It's Amma Marfo.
Or at least a voice of a generation. I don't even know if you can hear me. Is this microphone working?
It is, and that intro reminds me of that time I watched Brian Williams' daughter get her ass eaten on prestige television. What is this timeline? Next, whenever she's not on this podcast, all the other characters should be asking, where's Kara? It's the return of our little poochie, Kara Austen.
I have to go now. My planet needs me.
Note, Kara died on her way back to her home planet. And our final panelist couldn't help but wonder, is Carrie Bradshaw a fashionista or just a real pain in the Manolo? It's Kevin Dillon.
Well, I do know about whole, Eric, so I hope I can help with this debate.
Well, look at Mr. Cocky over here. And up in the producer booth, we have Derek Makita, who thinks we're all just awful. If you're curious about how we ended up with this Sour 16, become a Patreon supporter of our little show, or listen to the 3-minute preview available wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget, you can head to this episode on greatpopculturedebate.com to find the listener bracket so you can play along with us at home. And with that out of the way, let's ponder how a character can be so unlikable that Charlie Sheen is considered the better option as we get into these debates. First up, the majority of the panel thinks that one-seed Rachel Berry from Glee made for an off-key central character. But Amma is ready to lock up 4-seed Piper Chapman from Orange is the New Black for Crimes Against TV audiences. I'll say why I condone throwing a slushie in the face of the would-be funny girl. Amma, tell us why Piper deserves prison, honey. Amma, please go first.
So let me first say, this is not an endorsement of Rachel Berry. She is also terrible. And I suspect that a lot of the arguments are going to start with some semblance of that. It's like, oh, to be clear, these are both bad.
Yes.
But I can say in my occasional career as a freelance culture critic, only one of these characters did I write a piece and get paid for to essentially say, why the hell is this person still here? And that was Piper Chapman. One of the characteristics that I used to make my arguments was, is this person structurally necessary to the success of this show? And I think Rachel Berry is a little bit more necessary to Glee, at least at the beginning, than Piper Chapman is. She's a means to get you into this place, but so many of those other characters are more compelling that after a certain point, I'm just like, she's still here? Like, what for? Whereas Rachel, I think, is a little bit more essential to the proceedings. So while bad, there would be a notable omission if she disappeared. So that was the reason that I went for Piper over Rachel.
That's a damn good argument. I'd like to check, since this is the 3-1. Kara, are you sticking with Rachel Berry, or are you open to switching to Piper?
I'm sticking with Rachel Berry because I wish she would disappear.
Kevin, are you sticking with Rachel Berry, or are you open to switching to Piper?
These are the two worst people, in my opinion, of these four battling it out. With that said, Ryan Murphy pushed Leah Michelle so far down our throats, I now have a gag reflex. Bitch won a Tony in the series finale. Did we want her to win a Tony? No, we did not, because she was a monster, and I am sticking with Rachel Berry. I hate her.
I'm going to flip. I'm going to give it to Piper Chapman, because I do think that Piper is such a terrible character, and I think they knew it. That's the thing. I don't think Ryan Murphy ever thought that Rachel was so bad. I do think that Jenji Kohan, at least if didn't understand it, got the memo that the viewers did not like Piper. And by the end of the series, Piper had very much been sidelined. So I am going to switch my vote to Piper, but it's 2-2, and Rachel is the 1 seed. So Rachel Berry will continue into next round. Next, the panel made the unanimous decision to push forward Friends dweeb Ross Gellar, a 2 seed, which meant that Kate Austen from Lost, a 3 seed, was on an island all her own. No one volunteered to speak for Kate, which I think is telling in and of itself. Kevin, did you want to say something about that?
It's this one is tough for me. And what ultimately pushed Ross forward for me was I don't have much to say about Kate. And maybe that is more damning to your point, Eric, but like the fajitas episode in, I think it's the last season where Ross like burns his hands up, it, like just make him like, they make a lot of these characters just so like cartoonish and weird and dumbed down, where I'm just like, get out of here.
100%. Yeah, so we will be moving Ross into round 2. Next, the panel is evenly split between 2 tiresome NBC comedy protagonists. 1 seed Jerry Seinfeld from Seinfeld and 4 seed Andy Bernard, a latter season focus on The Office. Kara, tell us what's the deal with Jerry Seinfeld? Kevin, try not to chafe your nipples as you race to push Andy to the finish line. I would like to have Kara go first.
I was thinking when you talk about the Friends thing, I think some of these characters in these shows, it's also like when they were made and how they hold up now. Because I think definitely when I was watching Seinfeld, I didn't think Jerry was terrible because he's just funny, and it's more looking back at it now, especially compared to other shows and other characters. But he's the most boring out of everybody, and he basically kind of rides the waves that his friends make as far as comedy. He's just reacting, and he's not putting himself out there. He's also completely emotionally unavailable. He's a terrible person to date. I don't understand how he dates so many women. And I mean, the quantity is just because he dumps them for the stupidest reasons. Like, you know, one thing they do, completely undateable now. It's a problem. And how could he ever tolerate this? And this will come up, I think, in a lot of the things we talk about. Across all the seasons, there's zero growth. He's the same person in episode 1 as he is in the final episode, and he's, you know, kind of punished for that in a way. Like, he treats human interactions and relationships like he's just going through his refrigerator tossing out expired milk. Like, the minute you're no longer valuable to him and you're not making him look good or able to crack jokes at your expense, he's gone, or you're gone in his eyes.
Kevin, talk to us about Andy Bernard from The Office.
I'm going to start by saying what I will say against that argument is that these are 4 perfect puzzle pieces that fit together in their own quadrants of terrible. Whereas Andy Bernard is one of the worst television characters I've ever witnessed in my entire life. He is a true monster of a human being. What he does to poor Erin is worse than anything that Jerry did to any of the girls that he dated. It is, by and large, he literally courts her by giving her the 12 days of Christmas and then abandons her with no communication, no anything. And Erin is the literal core heart of the later seasons of The Office. So on the terrible person side, he's a terrible person. On the story plotting point, when they decided to make him the replacement for Michael Scott, I have no clue what anyone in that writer's room was smoking, because he could not carry that show. He was a meant-to-be supporting player who bounced off the rest of these people, and if we're taking him as a lead, he was so useless and unavailable to them that they essentially wrote his character out for large chunks of the later season. I think Ed Helms is a very talented comedian. This role for so long made me look at him as though I could not watch anything that he was in. And I think that's the other reason I have to move him forward, is just because I've seen him in other stuff in hindsight, and I'm like, you are a very funny, talented, good comedian. But this role is just so painful.
It's a great point, and it is unique, and I think in this bracket. Amma, where are you on this? Is it going to be Jerry Seinfeld, or is it going to be Andy Bernard?
For me, it's Andy.
Well, another great argument, and here's my thing, Kara, is number one, I think that Jerry Seinfeld is a sociopath. On the show, please don't sue me, Jerry Seinfeld. Number two, he is by far the least entertaining of the group. We are 100% in agreement with that. Mm-hmm. Number three, he does terrible things. And but they're all terrible. And I think that's, like, I also mentioned in the warm-up, like, nobody from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia was on this list because they're meant to be terrible.
Yeah. Kevin really even swayed me in that, too. Like, you know, you do need to make that show work, you do have to have a somewhat neutral, terrible person.
Yep.
Kevin, you've swayed me, and I was supposed to be arguing against. Like, they're all terrible.
Yeah. So let's make it a clean sweep, folks.
Yeah.
And Andy Bernard is going to move into round two. It's another unanimous decision by the panel, this time between pick-me princesses, as two-seed Hannah Horvath from HBO's Girls will continue to shit on camera for at least another round, while three-seed Dr. Meredith Grey from Grey's Anatomy fades to black, next in a matchup between unlikable leads from shows about finding your true match, until a Peloton gets involved, that is. The bulk of the panel thinks the bracket is better off without 4-seed Ted Mosby from How I Met Your Mother, while Kara thinks that 1-seed Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the City should be a shoo-in. Kevin, lead us on with your argument for Ted Mosby, and then at the last second, give us a completely insulting fake-out ending. Kara, tell us why we should stop dicking around and move Carrie forward. Kara, please go first.
Sex and the City is one of those shows I have attempted to really get into over and over again. And the main reason I cannot is because of Carrie Bradshaw. I have started and people are like, well, if you get to this episode, then it gets really good. And I'm like, all right, I've tried. All right, I'll jump to there. And I find her so unlikable and so like, she's like the patron saint of bad decisions. And there's no accountability to when those don't work out. And then, like, when, and everything talking was big, and I was like, oh, well, there's got to be something here. So I kind of judged that. And it's like, he's like if the "you up" text made a wish to become a real boy. And and she treats him like the last lifeboat on the goddamn Titanic. It's like, girl, there are other ships. I can't get behind, and I can't, like, not that you see yourself in every character you're supposed to, but it's like, I can't rationalize why this character is so popular and why are we supposed to care about it. It's just, and again, like, again, I haven't watched everything in it, but it's like, anytime I've checked in on this show, there's zero characters. It's the same person. It's like, for me, it's like, what is it? That's the the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I can't get behind her. I find her terribly grating and irredeemable.
All right, Kevin, talk to us about Ted Mosby.
The premise of this television show, in the end, is that he literally long conned his kids into listening to 10 years of stories so he could fuck Colby Smulders. That is the premise of this show. I mean, I get it.
I don't think it would be that difficult if you really tried any other approach.
No. And guess what? Listen, Colby Smulders, super hot. Like, so hot, beautiful, cool, love Robin. Great character, really fun. The one thing that I do think about a lot from that show, Ted Mosby from the jump is like, I just want a wife. And it's like, dude, chill the fuck out. My God. Like, you are an insane, talk about a sociopath. Like, he's bananas, the things that he puts his friends through, women through. And like, oh man, it is like, the worst parts of like Garden State, 500 Days of Summer, and any of those 2000 aughts manic pixie nonsense things all rolled into one character. He is, I could go on for a really long time about him, but he's just really awful.
I say this all the time, but this is possibly the best use of it. Drag him, Kevin. Ruin his life.
He is disgusting. It's awful.
Where are you on this one? Is it Carrie Bradshaw or Ted Mosby?
I have Ted Mosby winning this bracket, so I am voting for Ted.
She's invested.
She is. I do want to point out that we are putting forward the worst person, not like who we think is better, the worst person. And I agree with everything that's been said about Ted Mosby, and we will be moving Ted Mosby into round 2. Next, it's a Chuck Lorre-off with 2 very different but equally exasperating man babies. The panel is unanimously pushing out socially incompetent genius Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang Theory, a 3-seed, meaning that the socially incompetent single father, Alan Harper, from 2.5 Men, a 2-seed, is out of our bracket. Finally, in round 1, it's 2 more unanimous decisions by the panel, which is moving forward 2 insufferable 90s teen heartthrobs. 1-seed Dawson Leery from Dawson's Creek will cry his way into round 2, meaning that 4-seed Ally McBeal from Ally McBeal can only fantasize about a future in our bracket. And 2-seed know-it-all Zack Morris from Saved by the Bell will continue to Zack attack, while 3-seed know-it-all Rory Gilmore from Gilmore Girls is flunking out. And that's the end of round 1, folks. We're going to take a quick break to break up with someone via Post-it note. We'll be right back.
Want even more great pop culture debate in your life? We're talking behind-the-scenes shenanigans, hot takes fresh off the press, and all the pop culture goodness you can handle? Then you absolutely must follow us on social media. Get your daily dose of debates, polls, and hilarious commentary on all the latest trends. We're on Instagram and TikTok at Great Pop Culture Debate, and we've joined the Blue Sky Revolution at gpcd.bsky.social for even more in-depth discussions. So, whether you're team hashtag pineapple on pizza or team hashtag Die Hard is a Christmas movie, join the conversation. Follow the Great Pop Culture Debate on Instagram and Blue Sky and TikTok and all our other socials too, because the debate never sleeps.
And we're back for round 2 of our worst lead character in a TV series debate. Before we get into the Elite 8, or I guess the Delete 8 in this case, I want our panelists to share their social media and what else they're working on. Amma, where can people find you? What you doing?
So I'm on Instagram and YouTube at Amamarfo. Those are the most reliable places to find me. I'm doing comedy all over the dang place. I have an hour that I've been traveling with a little bit. I did it in Boston and Providence. At the time of this recording, New York and Austen are on deck. But if you want to watch it from the comfort of your own home, it is on YouTube, and you can get that link from my link tree on my Instagram bio.
Fabulous. Very. Please check that out. Amma's hilarious, and we're so glad to have her back on this episode. Thank you, Amma. Kara, where can people find you? What you doing?
You can find me on most socials at CMY Kara, Kara. You can also check out my Little Free Library on social at Neighborhood Trolley LFL. You can find all the bookish things I'm up to.
Awesome. Thank you for coming back for this episode. And Mr. Kevin, where can people find you? What you doing?
I like to hide, so but I'm on Twitter at ET Mind, which is where you can find me trashing other television characters. If you think I'm funny, find me there, or the Discord.
The best place to follow us is on Blue Sky at gpcd.bsky.social or at Great Pop Culture Debate on Instagram or TikTok. You should also make sure to subscribe to our page on YouTube, where we're posting original video content. But what you really need to do is to sign up for our weekly newsletter, new every Tuesday at noon. It tells you about everything that's coming out in pop culture that week. Sign up by finding the link on this episode at greatpopculturedebate.com or via Linktree on any of our social media accounts. Now, let's get into round 2 before we get into another slap fight. In what I believe is a first for the show, I think we have an almost completely unanimous round, as the Delete 8 has been largely winnowed down to a flaccid 4. Let's bear witness to these awful characters together. First, one-seed Rachel Berry from Glee is so irritating, she's forcing this panel to pivot away from 3-seed Ross Gellar from Friends. But Amma, you wanted to dress down Ross for less before we moved on. Amma, please go first.
I love a Ross Dress for Less, so thank you for saying that. Anytime I'm somewhere where there's a Ross Dress for Less, I'm like, I wasn't going to buy clothes or weird gourmet snacks, but here we are.
Here we are. Yep.
So Ross Gellar, to an extent, this is not his fault. There is a phenomenon that happens in sitcom writing. I'm not really sure what drives this, where I think it's something combining like the changing of the guard of writers, something combined with kind of extending the longevity, where they decide, what if a character was just weird? And Ross is not the only person to whom this has happened. I would also cite Eric Matthews from Boy Meets World, who was relatively normal, if a little ditzy, and then I think he hit his head off screen and came back, and I was like, who is this person? And Ross suffers from something pretty similar there. Now, I think there are cases where this can work. The example that I always give is in the writing of New Girl, having to contend with the loss of Coach, the original character from the pilot, and bringing in Winston. They decided to make him weird, and that actor really made it sing. It does not work for Ross. It doesn't make sense for Ross. So he turns into a person that you really don't recognize after all this groundwork has been laid, and you like that person, and you feel for that person, and then he becomes a different character. So you can't root for him the way that you once did. So some of this blame is on Ross the character, but I think this is also kind of a structural, foundational issue.
Yeah, it's such a good point. Like, if you look at Ross from the date he takes Rachel to in the planetarium in the first season, I think, like, he is swoon-worthy. He's so charming, and, like, you are really rooting for him to get this girl. And then you look a couple seasons later, screeching, like emotionally eruptive, like it's just a completely different human being. And I agree, I don't think it's David Schwimmer's fault. I think it's the writers just decided, like, for whatever reason, we have to take Ross and make him just completely unhinged, I guess, to balance out the group. Kevin, do you have something to say about that?
I will just say, in Ross's defense, they were on a break. I'm sorry. It's like the biggest loser take to not I too would have had a mental breakdown after dating Rachel Green from that moment, because they literally were like, okay, we're going to put our relationship on pause. And that is literally what begins his downward spiral, is just that moment in the show. And it is like, they were on a break. Folks, I don't know how to dice it or slice it to you. They were.
All right. That being said, we are going to go ahead and move Rachel Berry into the final four. Next, 4-seed Andy Bernard from The Office has proved to suck worse than 2-seed Hannah Horvath from Girls. But Amma, you also wanted to kick Hannah in the ass before we continue.
Yeah. So I think in some cases, this is a different problem. So I would argue that Hannah Horvath is a terrible character, but I think I would also argue that someone as young as Lena Dunham, doing as much as they were on that show, did not know how bad that character was and has come to realize that later. And I think that there are elements of that experience that she's since spoken on and said, I would have made different decisions. So there's a level of forgivability that you can give somebody in their 20s, also writing someone in their 20s, that comes from a really insulated environment. There wasn't a whole lot to be done about this. Like, I don't know what other version of Hannah Horvath we could have gotten, given what Lena Dunham was steeped in and where those characters could have conceivably gone. By comparison, the person that she is up against, that's someone who should have known better on a couple of different... There are a lot of someone should have known better pieces for that.
Great points. And, Kara, I saw you saying, to a couple of those things.
It's like, but you know what? She did, running that show at 20, she did give us Adam Driver, and I will be forever thankful for that, so...
That is true. I will say, and I haven't kept that much up with Lena Dunham since the show ended, I'll be honest about that. And I know there's been books and I know there's been interviews. But I got to the point where in the latter seasons of that show, I was like, is it intentional? Is she intentionally doing a very pointed critique of her generation in this show? And when I started to watch it through that lens, I was like, okay, none of these characters are likable, and yet I do think they're highly, highly heightened versions of real people. But I was like, there is something actually quite interesting about watching a generation critique itself in real time that I don't like any of them, but it was almost like watching a National Geographic special. Like, oh, millennial girls, in the natural habitat. Do you have something to say to that? I could see you react to that, Amma. Do you disagree with that take?
I don't know that I disagree with it necessarily. I think that there is a way to watch it where that makes it feel a little bit more palatable. I'm not sure. At this point, I don't know how much of it was that pointed of a critique and how much of it was just like, I'm writing what I know, and what I know has turned out to most people to be pretty insufferable. It's kind of hard to tell.
Like most things with Lena Dunham, it's complicated. But we will be moving Andy Bernard from The Office into the final four. In our one actual debate this round, the majority of the panelists are still sick of 4-seed Ted Mosby from How I Met Your Mother, but Kara remains offended on behalf of actual geeks everywhere at the mere existence of 3-seed Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang Theory. Kara, deliver your argument against Sheldon in the exact same manner for umpteen seasons and somehow win repeated Emmys for it. Amma, tell us why Ted and that Him finale still stink up the joint. Kara, please go first.
I fucking hate Sheldon Cooper and that whole goddamn show so much, because you know what it is to be a nerd when that show is as popular? Like, oh, you go to Comic-Con? Have you ever heard of the Big Bang Theory? And it's like, yeah, I have. And like, oh, you must love it. It's like, no, I fucking don't. And I'm sure that the only chance that show had to be saved was if they just got rid of Sheldon Cooper from the beginning. Because anytime there was any sort of buildup or rhythm, his whole character existed to just stop the conversation completely. And when he had this weaponized arrogance, like, it's like, it's a bully writing about nerds. It's not nerds writing for nerds. This wasn't to make anybody feel good or like relate to them. It was just like, see how fucking weird they were? We were right in high school. Look at them. They're failing. And there are a lot of common threads across like things I don't like about characters. Like, he's a terrible friend. Like, he literally writes up contracts for friendship. He has his emotional awareness is just non-existent. I think you could take him out of the show and you would have a better show. If we're using that as one of the standards, you would have a watchable show. And again, like, as another character who's like, by design has no growth. Like, they're just like, this is his bit. And what do they do when the shows end? Like, let's take his bit and put it in a smaller version of it and have a brand new show with this. I worry about people who love that show so much when they announce Young Sheldon. They're like, yes, excellent, give me more. I've been swayed for the How I Met Your Mother for the Ted thing, but I was like, my dislike and hatred for that show and that character in particular knows no bounds.
Amen.
I will take my answer off the air.
No, amen, sister. Amma, talk to us about Him and good old Ted Mosby.
So real quick, an affirmation of Kara's screed against Big Bang Theory. There are a handful of things that someone has said to me that will stay with me all my life, and where I have some sort of memory loss incident, some of these things would be the last to go. One of them, in 2011, a friend of mine called Big Bang Theory nerd blackface, and I have never forgotten it.
I've seen that come up in several places, or like it's a nerd minstrel show. And I was
Yes. So those who would speak in defense of the program, sit with that, see how it feels. To Ted Mosby, I was asked, hey, would you speak about Ted Mosby in this round? And I said, with pleasure, I would. As I mentioned, I have Ted Mosby winning this bracket. He is eminently unlikable for many of the reasons that we've already brought up. He is bad to his friends. He puts really, really unreasonable and unsustainable expectations on the women that he dates. The show is framed from his perspective, so you get the sense that some of the other people around him are worse, namely Barney, but I think that they were able to then make a compelling relationship with Barney and Robin, and he's a better boyfriend than Ted was, and then would have been later on in the show. But the point that I touched on before that I'm going to, again, hammer home in this is you had to break the show to give Ted what he wanted. So in order for Ted to get the happy ending that he wanted, a really good relationship with Barney and Robin had to dissolve off camera just to be able to bring it back around. You also had to turn Robin into a version of herself that she wasn't, and had been very vocal the entire time about being, not wanting to be a mother, not being the type of person that could reasonably give Ted what she wanted. And for that happy ending to come to fruition, all of that had to be wiped away. What did we watch for? 10 years of all of the stuff that they had built up and all of these people that they had asked us to love. And then by the end of it, it's just like, hey, everybody has to behave differently from the people that you fell in love with for us to get the ending that we started thinking about this with. That's not a good way to run a television show. That's why the ending was so disappointing, because it was wildly unauthentic from the dynamic that we had fallen in love with.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Kevin, is it going to be Ted Mosby or is it going to be Sheldon Cooper for you?
This is a hard one because I hate both of these people so much. So much. But Ted Mosby is just truly an evil scourge on this earth. So it is Ted Mosby for me, and he is the worst character.
So this could be a final two, I think, for the
Total.
whole bracket.
Yeah.
Because I think they're both distasteful. We've rarely talked about the Big Bang Theory on this show, and there's a reason for that. And that reason is I fucking hate it. And I think it's really bad. I think it is bad television. And I think the blackface for geeks is exactly right. I think there's now another spinoff coming out starring the character who's run the comic shop on that show. And I was just like, at some time it has to stop. Like the madness has to
Lorre
end.
must be stopped.
He must be stopped.
The height of his contribution to pop culture was the theme song to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which slaps. But not unlike the vast majority of his shows, they changed it in the later seasons and it broke everything.
You're not wrong. Everything about that was correct. And I just like Chuck Lorre and his career is right up there with like Kim Kardashian and what's the guy who directed Terminator 2, Titanic, James Cameron. As proof that
A small independent art house filmmaker,
yes,
James
you might
Cameron.
have not heard of him,
Yeah.
but proof that Satan exists and he does have contracts because like their continued success, and I know James Cameron is actually talented, but like everything these people do is successful, and I'm like, why? Why do good things happen to terrible people while the rest of us struggle? It's just, it's appalling.
2025.
Oh, amen. But no, I'll go ahead and give it to Ted Mosby. But there you go, folks. Finally, in round two, ring
If
the
there's
alarm.
ever a young Ted show, it's because you guys all voted for him. I hope you know that. That's
that
the
is-
energy y'all are putting in this room right now, and
That's
you're going to
right.
reap what you sow.
Don't bring that foolishness into season 13. Finally, in round two, ring the alarm because 2-seed Zach Morris from Saved by the Bell has delivered a TKO against 1-seed Dawson Leery from Dawson's Creek. But Kara, you wanted to speak on our good friend Dawson.
Dawson is so bad, and it's a reckoning that has come as I got older. Because when I first started watching that show, like I fell for it, like I was totally into it. And it's in the pre-show we kind of talked about this with one of my other teen drama loves with Roswell, where it was just the prime audience for the main pairing that they're going to push on you. And I was like, he's so he's so in touch with his emotions, and he's so sensitive. And then you grow up and you have actual problems, and you're like, he's a little bitch, and he needs to fucking stop it. you can do so much better, Joey, and thank God she does. And if whatever she and Joshua Jackson are doing right now, I'm gonna love it. But no, like he's awful to be around. And again, he's another terrible friend, and he demands so much from the people around him to coddle him in every situation. Everything is to make Dawson's life as easy or as cinematic as he wants it to be.
Incredible. Kevin, you were going to say something?
I was gonna say if Kevin, this character is, I think, loosely in some way, shape, or form based on Kevin Williamson, and if Kevin Williamson had the agency to create this character in his own likeness and make him the truly terrible homosexual he was meant to be, it would have made way more sense. And like instead, you're forced to have this like terrible relationship that never was meant to be with Dawson and Joey, and Dawson is just becomes this like miserable, selfish straight man that no one gives a shit about. And like, if only he were a gay guy, it would have been at least maybe more interesting, and there could have been more complexity there.
Fully agree.
I'm looking up I can't find the name. I read a romance book not too long ago, and it's like one of those realistic fantasy type things. So the main character has this show, and I forget what it's called, but it's Dawson's Creek, but it's not Dawson's Creek. And she's alone on her birthday with her roommate that she kind of knows, but not really. And she gets a magical birthday cake and makes a wish, and she ends up in the show, like on the set as the main character, and her roommate ends up as the Pacey type character. Like they've just taken their places. And so she's like, oh, I can have this romance I've wanted so much with the Dawson-like character. And then she realizes how terrible he is. It was my favorite part of this book, and I'm spacing on the name of it right now, but it was so I only read it like in the past year. It was so fun to read because it's that reckoning I had with the show.
We will have that name for you when we get back from break. You were going to say something?
I got to read this. So I do appreciate, Kevin, that you brought up the Kevin Williamson in his own likeness point to this, because I do think that that's really important, is the idea that Dawson was initially given the level of standing that he was because Kevin Williamson wanted to build that show, being that character, the main one, obsessed with films, all of those things. But this is also a really great example of what we talked about in the warm-up with the Gilded Age, where the show over time recognized this is not the character that people want to see. This is not the relationship that is actually interesting. So this is a good example of a show recognizing where it was handicapped and decided to pivot accordingly. As a lifelong Joshua Jackson fan, fellow Canadian Joshua Jackson, Canadian treasure Joshua Jackson, I was all in for Pacey from the beginning. I did briefly get swayed, Carrie, to your point, because it was the type of thing generationally that you're like, oh, this is supposed to happen. And then you get a better option and you're like, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
It's Primetime Romance by Kate Robb. And the show in the book is Carson's Cove.
Carson's Cove. Amazing. All right. So all that being said, Dawson's out, folks, because Zach Morris is somehow even worse than that. And with that, we have our final four. We're going to take a quick break to serve out our prison sentences for breaking Good Samaritan laws. We'll be right back.
Good evening. I'm not Barbara Walters, and this is the Great Pop Culture Debate. In the ever-evolving landscape of pop culture, are you finding it difficult to keep up? The debates, the trends, the opinions, it can be quite overwhelming. What if there were a way to stay informed, to be in the know, without having to wade through a sea of information? I invite you to subscribe to the Great Pop Culture Debate newsletter, a curated collection of the most compelling discussions, the most insightful analyses, and yes, even a few controversial takes. Delivered directly to your inbox, it's your essential guide to navigating the fascinating world of movies, television, music, and more. Join us, won't you? Let us explore these cultural phenomena together. Subscribe to the Great Pop Culture Debate newsletter at greatpopculturedebate.com. Because as we all know, pop culture, it matters.
And we are back with the final four of our worst lead character in a TV series debate. At this point in the show, I like to take a step back and see if it shook out the way I expected it to. No. And part of that is because the seeds were very strange in this one. This is the time where I say to you, hey, have you voted in the polls that are up on greatpopculturedebate.com? Because that ultimately is what determines what makes the brackets and also the seeds. So there are some people here I think should have been higher seeds. I think Ted Mosby certainly should have been something other than a 4. And Andy Bernard from The Office as a 4 seed, I think also should have been higher. These are Cinderella stories. We also have Rachel Berry from Glee, a 1 seed. Personally, I think that's too high, but that's fine. And then Zach Morris from Saved by the Bell, a 2 seed, who we have not talked about at all. And I'm very excited to hear you all come at him because I had a deep and abiding crush on him when I was a teenager. So let's get into it. Rachel Berry from Glee versus Andy Bernard from The Office. I would like to start with Amma Marfo. Where are you on this one?
Rachel.
Do you have a reason for Rachel?
So at this point, we're now in a scenario where we've talked through all of these, and I do think that it's less about their positioning in the show and really just more to the character where it's like, hey, if you were in a room with this person, would you want that? I don't, and it really is a battle of, it's a sing-off, and both of them are going to sing at you. You're probably not going to want it or have any control over it. But I do think that there is occasionally a kind of earnestness to Andy that I don't find in Rachel.
Kara, is it going to be Rachel Berry or is it going to be Andy Bernard?
I mean, women supporting women. Rachel Berry is such an awful character, and she takes the things that I want to support in women, in female characters, like ambition, and makes it so toxic that it's like her ambition is at the expense of literally everybody else in that show, and she will steamroll anyone who gets in her way, and without any sort of redemptive quality to it. It's not like she's trying to win a singing contest to earn money to open a children's hospital or something. It's just to, push herself forward and get what she wants.
I love that about her, though.
But she's not even fun in doing it. It's not like a Cersei Lannister thing where it's like, and if I don't get what I want, I'm gonna take you all with me. Like, there's something about that I love, but it's like, she's unlike, when you said like someone, you were, if you were in a room with them, or and it's like the idea of being in a room with Rachel Berry made my stomach turn. So.
The way you were describing her as like getting whatever she wants at any cost necessary, it made me think of Alexis Carrington from Dynasty, which I resonate with so strongly with. But there is a wide mile between Alexis and Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Kevin, is it going to be Rachel or is it going to be Andy for you?
So when we filled out the brackets, I think I had this pairing. I had Andy moving forward, and what I was debating about as we were getting into this is like, Andy wasn't always the lead, but in a way he was, because when he was introduced to the show, he was sort of introduced. I think The Office had like a couple of leads. Like Michael Scott is the main lead character, but like Dwight, Pam, Jim, then Andy became a lead too. They're the only ones in the opening credits when you see the show. So to me, they're the core leads of the show. I think with regards, I am going to vote for Andy. I think for me, Andy is just there's not an ounce of redeemability in him. And you do sort of get that in the end with his like reclaiming that terrible moment when he auditions for a reality show and like cries in a corner. He's just such a sad sack throughout the show. And I think the show shoehorns in a redemption arc for him into the end finale that I just don't buy, like, or agree with. Just think he's a terrible entry point in that show that really lost me in the character arc of a main character. Like it's just such a loser character that I just really truly hate. Whereas Rachel, I kind of agree. Like, we really criticize women for like being ambitious, and now granted, allegedly Leah Michele did shit in someone's wig on set, but allegedly
she's a terrible person. Allegedly can't read.
But
prove me wrong.
Yeah, but here's the thing, like, we do criticize female characters for that quite a bit. It's not the best handled, but at least it is somewhat interesting and dynamic, and it is kind of very parallel to Barbra Streisand, and like, I know that Leah Michele pushed for that type of story arc with Ryan Murphy, and in a way it is kind of about how hard it is for women to be so talented and successful and just like own their talent. Like, and really fight for their talent. And Andy was never talented or good at anything. So I got to vote for Andy.
Like most white men. Amma, you wanted to raise your hand and say something.
I need to change my vote.
Uh-oh. All right.
I'm coming back around to Andy Bernard for 2 reasons. So within the structural element of a show, and we're talking about worst lead TV series character, Rachel as a lead was there essentially from the beginning. And while we don't like her, by whatever metrics we're using, she's successful as a lead. Andy Bernard was elevated to lead, and many would argue he failed. Like, within the context of the show, it wasn't compelling enough to keep him. And again, the idea that he could be missing at any point, and the show just kept moving, and it didn't hurt significantly from his absence, that's another piece of it. I think there's another piece of me that is starting to feel badly in the sense of, like, a lead character who is the worst, but also very young. And given the sense or the opportunity that, like, if we followed them down the road, like 20, 25 years, does this person have the opportunity to change? Andy is fully an adult and terrible and arguably getting worse. Andy is my vote.
I was definitely not Team Rachel. And frankly, I've never disliked Rachel. I get why people do, but like, she is the theater kid. We all had that theater kid in high school. I know you think it was me. It wasn't just me. It was also Dawn Shoemaker. And so, like, we were those people. They were real. Like, they were that irritating and like, and they wanted to succeed so bad and they're working so hard. And God damn it, why can't they just make it? There is something about that was so real. And I can't think of another character like Rachel
But aren't they
Berry.
also the worst?
They are the worst, but there's something compelling about them, right?
Yeah.
Like, if we say that Seinfeld's characters are also the worst, but it's also in an entertainment anyway. Like, Rachel Berry is, I think, compelling to watch for being the worst, and the motherfucker can sing. Say what you want, but like, she was singing. Like, the women on Glee were very talented. Go listen to the best Glee song episode. All we do is talk about the women until Darren Criss comes in. But like, to me, I agree that her character is annoying, but theater kids are annoying, and I love theater kids, and I'm here to rep for the theater kids. So Andy is just a mediocre white man who failed upwards, and in my opinion, there is nothing that's more worse than that, because look around you. We're swimming in it, and I think that has to be acknowledged. So I believe that is 3 for Andy, which means he will continue into the final 2. In the last matchup in the F4, it is Ted Mosby from Himium, as I like to call it, versus Zach Morris from Saved by the Bell. We have not talked about Zach literally at all. Kara, will you rip open this bag of Doritos and tell us about Zach Morris and why you hate him?
Zach Morris is the quintessential 90s, like, popular guy, and men are terrible all throughout history, but there's a special breed of terribleness that is the 90s, because they had no actual problems to worry about and all the fucking power in the world. And he just, could ruin someone's reputation or, bestow upon them coolness or uncoolness, and he wielded that weapon completely carelessly. He terrorized his teachers, and he made everything about him. He could stop time to make everything about him. And again, some of those other classics, I think he's a real shitty friend. Unless things are like absolutely dire, and then he does the bare minimum, and it's like a special episode where it's like, oh, Zach saved everybody, and it's like, well, if he didn't do that, he would have been like accused of involuntary manslaughter. Like, it's just he's doing the bare minimum, but he tricked us, and we all thought he was so fucking cool or hot or both, and or like that's it's the devil, it's like the devil in disguise, and we all fell for it, and then again you get out and you're like, why the fuck was he like the pinnacle of maleness at that point?
Yep. It's so true. And before I give it to the people, to make your point about men in the 90s, this sounds like a segue, but I swear it's relevant. I just got back from a 4-hour drive, actually 5.5-hour drive from the Jersey Shore, and we had a 90s summer playlist on. And it occurred to me listening to that music, I don't think there's ever been a time in music where it was douchebag central. Then the late 90s and early 2000s, all of these songs were about men being fucking awful, and yet still expecting to be praised for it. They're so, like, Lit's My Own Worst Enemy came on, Everclear came on, and they're all about guys being terrible, yet still Sex and Candy, but still expecting to win. And that's the late 90s and the early 2000s, baby. Kevin, where are you on this one? Is it going to be Ted Mosby or Zach Morris?
This is tough, and I do want to hear all of this out. I am leaning Zach Morris, and I will say this: there are 2 things. Remember when Zach Morris was a high school student and dated clearly adult Rena Sofer in the Hawaiian episode, who had a child, and Zach was a 16/17-year-old
young man, and he was going to leave high school to be the father of this child. Hey, remember when Zach Morris dated the girl in the wheelchair and he said, "Hey guys, be cool. She's in a wheelchair, okay? Everyone act normal."
Remember when he stopped homelessness? Remember that?
Remember what? Yes, he stopped homelessness with the girl and her dad who lived at the mall. Oh god, they're so.
Remember how he tormented Leah Remini and she just wanted him to do the fucking work that her dad hired him for?
Yeah, and then he bore her down and dated her. Also, a girl who was in college while he was a 15 or 16-year-old working. Kind of very odd. Hey, oh god, I think there is obviously also a video called Zach Morris is the Worst, where like
Zach
it really
Morris
plays
is trash.
just like he's just a trash person. What I go back and forth on is none of those characters are great, to be honest with you. Like they're all kind of like mid characters. It's like a 90s teen soap. So I'm like, am I going on worst with this debate? Like they're both kind of at equal, in all honest, on all playing fields of terrible, these two. They're very similar tropes. One just existed about like 15 years later, which is kind of wild that trope still kind of existed in a nighttime sitcom. I don't know.
Zach would also barter his friend Lisa to get Screech to do things.
That is true. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna lean Zach here, but I want to hear what other folks say about this. It's a like 51-49, so it's Zach. I mean, this is a final two for me.
Okay. Is it going to be Zach Morris or is it going to be Ted Mosby?
It's Ted Mosby for a similar argument to what I put forth a moment ago, in the sense that, and I will also say that while both of these shows have had reboots, one of those characters was not in their reboot, whereas Zach Morris was in his. So you do get the opportunity to see a type of matured Zach Morris. And you can tell that a lot of the stuff that was like, this young person's camp, and I know we're supposed to be doing it within the context of this show, but I think that some of the stuff that we saw in Zach, he would have had the capacity to grow out of over time, whereas Ted Mosby was like, old enough to know better and was stuck in it. And then, you see a different Zach Morris by the time you do get to the reboot potential. So that was borne out. We did have an opportunity to see that in the way that we didn't for Ted. But the other thing that I would say is the structures of the shows, I think, means that the terribleness of those characters either has a material impact or it doesn't. And I think while Zach Morris is awful, the way that Saved by the Bell was structured is such that it doesn't really hurt anything. And also when I think about, again, how Saved by the Bell ends, like, that show is still the same show at the end as it was at the beginning, right? Some of the characters learn a little bit, but Saved by the Bell is not made worse by anything that Zach did. Ted Mosby, again, broke How I Met Your Mother.
That's such a good argument. Has she swayed you at all, Kara, or are you sticking with Zach
I'm
Morris?
sticking with Zach Morris, but it's hard because the two shows are made in such different times and in different ways. Like those, like, I don't know about anybody else because like we didn't have cable, so I don't know how we were getting the show, but it was like Saturday mornings or whatever we were
syndicated,
watching.
yeah,
it was, we watched it then. So like I don't think there was no one expected growth. It was just you had these tropes and they just existed in this show and they weren't going to change. Like Zach wasn't going to eventually become a good person. He would occasionally have moments of it, and I think that's just what it, at the time of who the audience was, that's what it was going to be. Versus some of the you get into, and again saying I've lost my train of thought. When you get into doing the sitcoms too, like there's only minimal growth expected. It's like go and again Seinfeld, another one. There's minimal to no growth because like they're playing tropes. But I think television where it is now, we expect to see growth even in the comedic sitcoms and things like that. It's the culture around it has changed.
Yeah.
So it's hard. You're not comparing apples to apples.
I think the particular trick with this one, Amma, you were going to say something?
I was. So the other thing that I think for me kind of drives the desire to like really push Ted on this over Zach is to that exact point, Kara, like the cultural expectations were different. So I think as a collective, we have come around to the idea that like Zach Morris is trash so much so that there is a show about it. Funny or Die did a series called Zach Morris is Trash where they go through these episodes and say, hey, remember what Kevin was doing? Hey, remember this episode? Zach Morris was super shitty in that. take a look at it. Whereas there are occasionally folks that I'll still run into that are like, oh yeah, I still watch How I Met Your Mother as your comfort show, and I want to take them by their shoulders and shake them and say, why? And I don't think that we've like collectively come around to how bad that is. We're starting to have the conversation. I think it's taking hold, but I really need it to be a universal hatred. And if my speaking on this podcast can be any part of that, it is my absolute pleasure to do so.
Kevin, you were going to say something?
I think you've swayed me. I do want to point out another terrible Zach Morris moment where he wears the Native American headdress because he discovers his indigenous background. It is. Yeah, it is. I love pointing out terrible Zach Morris moments. It's so fun. With that said, I think what you're pointing out, like in the beginning, when it was technically, I think, called Good Morning, Miss Bliss, but
yes,
in a rebrand, it still is called Saved by the Bell. Yep. The original imprint of Zack is interesting and sweet and charming, and there is a nuance to him, and that adds a whole nother layer to that character that does actually exist. And Ted was just always a piece of shit. Like, he really was. This was a very hard one for me, but I am going to switch to Ted just because of that point, Ted Mosby, that you made, Alma.
So here's my thing. I haven't voted yet. I have pros and cons. Number one, the con against Zach Morris is that I had a crush on him, and as people know, I have terrible taste in men, so that by definition should make him the worst. But the corollary to that is Zach Morris saved Jessie Spano from her crippling pill addiction, and I think we need to acknowledge it.
Possible moment.
But he still did it.
She was bare minimum.
She was so excited. She was so excited. She was so scared, and he helped her.
It would have been manslaughter. Like, he was going to go to jail if he didn't do something.
The other thing, and I think Amma's point really brings this to it, and I can't let go of this, is you're talking about characters not changing. The entire series, How I Met Your Mother, is predicated on the concept that at some point Ted will change and will meet the woman of his dreams. And yet, he doesn't. And yet, it's all a farce. And there is something that's so spectacularly terrible about that I'm going to give it to Ted. So that is 3 for Ted, 1 for Zach. I'm sorry, Kara. I think you did a very good job.
The thing is, even how it goes, they're both terrible. Like, no one's winning.
That's right. Only losing. It's losing. Very much welcome to your current existence. So we have a final 2 of Andy Bernard of The Office versus Ted Mosby from How I Met Your Mother. The first time I think we've ever had 2 4 seeds make the final 2. Craziness. I would like to start with Amma Marfo. I think I know where you're going. Ted Mosby or Andy Bernard?
Ted Mosby is the worst. I had Ted winning this. I never win anything. Please let me have this.
Okay. Kevin, is it going to be Ted Mosby or Andy Bernard?
These are 2 of my least favorite television characters of all time. Like, truly. Like, I think this is a spectacular final 2 because, like, in all honesty, like, I truly hate both of these people. And if you describe either of these characters as A, your favorite characters, or characters who were similar to your personality, I think you should run away from that human being because they are truly terrible themselves. I originally had Zach Morris moving forward. In all honesty, that was really my final 2 because I think Andy's beat up enough in some ways, and there are enough small, sweet moments of Andy that do exist that I can give him that like slight pass here. I don't think there's anything good about Ted throughout the whole run of that television program. Like, not one thing. Like, the way he treats Sarah Chalk as the single mom, the way he treats the all of the women in his world. What's her face? The cake baker, who's on Hallmark movies now. I can't think of her name. But like, he's
Victoria.
Just a terrible person. Victoria, yes, thank you. It's just, he's just truly abysmal. And I think, Alma, I can't get your point of like how this is how he sees himself. And like, is Barney terrible? Are like the way he treats Marshall and Lily as just like there as his like just people who are in his orbit. I don't know. Yeah, I hate Ted. It's Ted.
Kara, it's Ted Mosby versus Andy Bernard. I don't think you had either of these 2 people in your final 2.
No, I have to honor the warrior that slayed the beast of Zach Morris, I suppose. So I'll go with Ted.
And I'll go ahead and I'll make it a clean sweep. I think Andy had a good run, but Andy also was a later season lead versus Ted, who started from the very beginning. He was awful to begin with, and he was awful in the end. So I guess points for consistency. But there you have it, folks. Our pick for the worst lead character in a TV series is Ted Mosby from How I Met Your Mother. Do you agree? Do you think that actually someone should rain on our parade? Tell us how you really feel by leaving a comment on this episode at greatpopculturedebate.com or find us on Blue Sky or Instagram. While you're there, make sure you subscribe and follow the podcast so you can hear about what new debates are coming soon, vote in open polls, and even decide which topics we tackle next. I want to say thank you to my panel. All of you are the best. And thank you for listening. If you love what you heard, please consider supporting us on Patreon, where you can get even more exclusive content and you get episodes a whole day early. We hope you have a good one. And remember, everyone is entitled to their wrong opinion.